"Sir, what exactly did my son do wrong?" The woman didn't raise her voice, she didn't have to. The air on Maple Grove Lane had been calm just moments earlier. Now, it felt electric. 2 squad cars, 1 teenage boy, and a mother stepping out of a black SUV, like she just walked into a courtroom with something to prove. The sun was setting over Springfield Heights, that kind of sleepy, upper, middle-class suburb where every lawn looked like it had been trimmed by hand. A place where people waved at each other and still locked their doors twice. 16-year-old Andrew Lewis had no idea how fast a quiet walk home could turn into something else entirely. All because someone behind a bay window picked up the phone. And the officers, they had no idea who just got out of that SUV, but they were about to find out. Thank you for being here. Sometimes, the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now, let's take a closer look at what really happened. Mom, please step back. This is a police matter. But she didn't. She didn't even blink. Instead, she stepped forward, heels tapping against pavement like a slow, deliberate clock, and said the words that made the entire street fall silent. "That boy is my son." It should have ended there. But it didn't. It never does when the world sees a black teenager with a gym bag and assumes the worst. The sun was just starting to dip over Maple Glen, a manicured suburb outside Lexington, Kentucky. Fresh lawns, white fences, and suspicion, neatly trimmed on every corner. 16-year-old Jordan Miles was just trying to walk home from basketball practice. He never saw it coming. But his mother did. And by the time she pulled up in that black SUV, it was already too late to unring the bell. This isn't just a story about one afternoon. It's about the choices we make when fear disguises itself as caution, and how sometimes the real danger doesn't wear a hoodie. It holds a phone. Thank you for being here. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those. Quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now let's take a closer look at what really happened. You don't belong here. No one said it out loud. They never do in Maple Glen. But 16-year-old Jordan Miles heard it anyway, in the way shutters tilted as he walked by. In the tight smiles. In the quiet that followed him like a shadow. It was a Friday afternoon. The kind where sunlight shimmered like glass and everything felt too quiet. The type of day where suspicion has room to stretch its legs. Jordan had just finished basketball practice at Washington High, his gym bag slung over one shoulder, hoodie pulled halfway over his head. His playlist was loud, too loud, blocking out the world with every bass-heavy beat. He was tired, sweaty, hungry, but he was also proud. He'd scored 12 points that day, 2 blocks, 4 assists, and coach even slapped him on the back. "You keep playing like that, Miles, and I'll call in a scout." He'd laughed, pretending not to care. But inside, that sentence replayed like a song stuck in his head. So instead of taking the bus, he cut through Maple Glen, the short way home. His best friend Deshaun lived 2 blocks over. He'd been through the neighborhood plenty of times. But today was different. Today he was alone, and someone was watching. Across the street, behind a picture window trimmed with gold curtains. Margaret Ellison squinted through her reading glasses. She'd lived in Maple Glen for 17 years. Back when the oaks were saplings and the sidewalks still had seams. She knew the schedule of every house on her street, who left for work at 7:05, who watered their hydrangeas after dinner, who had out-of-town guests this week, and she had never seen him before. Tall, black, athletic, carrying a gym bag, just walking, just existing. Something about it unsettled her. Or so she told herself. She told herself it wasn't about race, that she was just being vigilant. That a real neighbor would stay alert. But fear has a way of hiding in comfort, and Margaret was very comfortable. She reached for her phone, paused. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Maybe he's just passing through. Maybe he knows someone here. But another voice chimed in sharper. What if he's not? She pictured herself on the news later that night. Home invasion neighbor says she saw something, but didn't call. That image sealed it. She pressed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Margaret lowered her voice, as if speaking too loudly might alert him. Yes, I'd like to report a suspicious person walking through Maple Glen. A young man. Black. Hoodie. He's carrying something, some kind of bag. I don't know who he is. The dispatcher asked if the young man was doing anything wrong. No. But he's looking around. Scoping houses, maybe. I've never seen him before. The dispatcher assured her that officers were nearby and would investigate. Margaret exhaled and pulled the curtain shut. Across the street, Jordan paused to change songs on his phone. He never even looked up. A mile away, officers Craig Denton and Luis Rivera were finishing up a traffic stop when the call crackled through dispatch. Suspicious person. Male. Black. Teenager. Gym bag. Reported prowling behavior. Maple Glen. Denton reached for the wheel. Rivera checked the GPS. Let's go have a look. They flipped the lights on. Jordan didn't hear the sirens at first. The music in his ears drowned them out, until the flashing red and blue reflected off the houses in front of him. He turned and froze. 2 officers. Squad car. Doors already swinging open.
Hey, Denton shouted.
Stop right there! Jordan pulled out his earbuds slowly, chest tightening. He didn't run. Didn't argue. Didn't do anything but stand still. Rivera approached cautiously, hand near his holster. What's in the bag? Jordan blinked. Just my gym stuff. Where you headed? Home. On Springmont Drive. Denton narrowed his eyes. That right, what address? 226. Got any ID? Jordan hesitated. I don't usually carry ID to practice. Rivera exchanged a glance with Denton. Mind if we look inside the bag? Jordan hesitated. He didn't know what his rights were. He didn't want to make it worse. Before he could answer, Denton already had the zipper in hand. Out came his jersey, a pair of sneakers, a half-empty bottle of Gatorade. Rivera said nothing, but Denton wasn't satisfied. What are you doing walking through this neighborhood? Jordan's voice cracked slightly. It's just a shortcut. Denton folded his arms. Then why'd someone call the cops? Jordan didn't answer, because he already knew the answer, and nothing he said would change it. Then, in the distance, a black SUV turned the corner. It didn't creep. It didn't speed. It moved with purpose. It rolled to a stop behind the squad car, and the second the doors opened, the air shifted. The officers turned, and then they froze. Out stepped Camille Miles, mayor of Lexington, and Jordan's mother. She wasn't in sweatpants or tennis shoes. She wore a navy blazer, dark jeans, and low heels that echoed against the pavement like a warning shot. She didn't run. She didn't raise her voice. She just walked forward. Jordan saw her and felt his chest unclench for the first time in minutes. Mom. She held up a hand. I've got this. Camille Miles didn't blink. She stepped forward with quiet power. Shoulders squared, eyes steady, her hand resting lightly on her phone like it was a gavel. The 2 officers looked from her to Jordan, then back again. Mom, please step back, Denton said quickly. We're handling a situation. Camille's voice was calm, but cut like glass. Oh, I see that. She turned to Jordan, who was still frozen by the curb, his gym bag now spilled open like evidence. Her eyes scanned his face, his posture, his breathing. She knew that look. It wasn't fear. It was restraint. The kind she had taught him to use. Stay still. Speak clearly. Don't give them a reason. What's going on here? She asked softly. Rivera cleared his throat. We got a call. Suspicious person in the area. Your son matched the description. Camille raised an eyebrow. And what was the description? Teenage male. Black, carrying a bag. She let that sit in the air for a moment, long enough for it to feel uncomfortable. And that, she said, was enough for 2 armed officers to stop him in the middle of the street. He was cutting through private property. Denton added, could have been casing houses. Camille held up her phone, tapped it and showed the screen. A student ID, Jordan's face. His name, their home address, a picture of the 2 of them from a youth mentorship event, smiling side by side. "This is my son," she said, "and he lives 4 blocks from here." The silence after that felt heavier than the sirens. Denton shifted. Rivera looked away. Neither offered an apology. Instead, Denton muttered, "We were just doing our job." Camille didn't flinch. "No," she said. "You were acting on an assumption, and assumptions like that get kids like my son killed." Jordan looked down. His shoulders were tight, jaw clenched. His mother's voice was steady, but he could feel the storm inside her. Then, from a distance, a creak. A door opened. Across the street, Margaret Ellison stood on her porch, arms folded, face pale. Camille saw her and recognized her. So did Jordan. It was the same woman who'd brought cookies to the mayor's office just 2 weeks ago. The same woman who'd smiled and said, "We're lucky to have you in our town." Now she couldn't meet Camille's eyes. Camille turned back to the officers. "You searched his bag. What had cause?" Denton replied stiffly. "What cause? Public concern. Was he doing anything wrong?" No answer. Camille took one more step forward. "You questioned him. Doubted he lived here. Doubted he belonged here. All because someone called the police on a teenager walking home." Rivera mumbled, "Ma'am, we really don't want this to escalate." Her tone dropped lower, softer, sharper. "You think this is escalation?" She gestured at Jordan. "He's 16. He plays varsity basketball, honors student, works weekends at a bookstore. This right here, is exactly what I've taught him to avoid." And it still wasn't enough. Jordan finally spoke. His voice cracked a little. "I told them where I lived. I told them what was in my bag." His hands were shaking slightly. He tried to hide it. They didn't care. Rivera looked visibly uncomfortable now. His jaw moved like he wanted to say something but didn't. Denton wasn't budging. "You can file a complaint with the department." Camille tilted her head. "That's what you think this is about?" Denton didn't respond. Behind them, Margaret was still frozen on her porch, watching. Camille turned to her. "Was it you?" Margaret swallowed hard. "I didn't know he was your son." Camille took a long breath. "And if he wasn't?" Margaret looked down. I thought maybe." "You thought what?" "That something didn't feel right." Camille stepped closer now, her voice still calm, but unwavering. "You've lived on this street for 17 years. You know what danger looks like. You know what it doesn't look like." Margaret's voice got smaller. "I was just trying to be careful." Jordan stared at her. This was the same woman who once dropped off Halloween candy at his friend Deshawn's door. Who smiled at him when she passed him on the sidewalk. He'd never seen her frown until he walked alone. Camille didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Do you know what could have happened here today?" she asked. Margaret didn't answer. Camille continued. "He could have been tackled, cuffed, slammed to the ground, for resisting, for reaching, for breathing." The words hung there, heavy, inevitable. Margaret's eyes welled up. "I didn't mean for this, but it happened," Camille said. "Because you called." Denton coughed, stepping back toward his car. "If there's no issue here, we'll be on our way." Camille narrowed her eyes. "That's it?" Rivera paused. "Look, we were just responding to a call." "Then maybe." Camille said quietly. "You should consider where those calls come from." And neither officer had a response for that. She turned back to Jordan and placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Come on, baby. Let's go home." He didn't say anything, just slung the bag over his shoulder and followed her to the car. The SUV door shut with a soft, final thud. The squad car idled for a moment before pulling away. Neither officer looked back. Margaret stayed on her porch, arms wrapped around herself, watching them drive away. But Jordan sat in the passenger seat, staring at his hands. His voice, when it came, was small. "What would have happened if you didn't show up?" Camille didn't answer. She just gripped the wheel tighter. The street faded behind them. But the silence stayed. The SUV rolled down Springmont Drive in silence. The sunlight was dimmer now, draped in evening haze. Long shadows crawled across the pavement, and Jordan's reflection drifted along the window beside him. He hadn't said a word since they pulled away. Neither had Camille. Her grip on the steering wheel never loosened. She had rehearsed this moment 100 times. Not this exact street, not this exact call, but the conversation that every black parent in America eventually has to have. What do you do when someone decides you don't belong? She'd always hoped it would be theoretical. A talk over dinner, a warning wrapped in love. Not a siren. Not two armed men standing over her child. Mum. Jordan finally said, his voice low. She looked over. Was it my fault? Her breath caught. No, she said softly. No, baby. He nodded, but didn't believe it. Then why did they stop me? Her voice cracked. Just a little. Because some people see danger where there is none. And sometimes they don't see a child. They see something else. Jordan looked out the window again. But I didn't do anything. You don't have to. They pulled into the driveway. Camille turned off the engine. The house was quiet, too quiet. She left the keys in the ignition and reached for her son's hand. I need you to hear me, she said. You did everything right. You were calm. You were respectful. He nodded. And it still didn't matter. Another nod. Do you understand what that means? He looked at her then, really looked. That there's nothing I can do. Her heart broke a little more. Not nothing, she whispered. But not enough to guarantee safety. Not yet. She pulled him close, held him. And for the first time that day, he let himself breathe. Meanwhile, across Maple Glen, Margaret Ellison sat on the edge of her floral print sofa, her phone in her lap. It hadn't rung. It probably wouldn't. The same phone she had picked up without hesitation now felt hot in her hands. She watched the screen go black. All day she had told herself she was being careful, that she had done the right thing. But now she wasn't sure what she had done. She replayed the scene in her mind, the officers, the teenager, the mayor in heels and authority. Her mouth had gone dry the moment she realized who she had called on. But it wasn't just about who it was. It was about what it meant. She told herself she wasn't racist. She had friends. She volunteered. She donated to the community center. She smiled at everyone. So why had she called? Why had her first instinct not been curiosity but suspicion? And now, the question she had spent her whole life avoiding settled like dust in her lungs. What if the danger wasn't him? What if it was me? She opened her neighborhood group chat. 3 unread messages. All from earlier. Anyone see that kid walking past the Ellisons? Looked kind of sketchy to me. Glad someone called it in. Never know these days. She didn't respond. She stared at those texts like they were written in another language. Then she typed one line and deleted it. Typed it again and deleted it. What could she even say? It was the mayor's son. No, that wasn't the point. He wasn't doing anything. Too defensive. I think I was wrong. Closer. But it wasn't just about being wrong. It was about how easy it had been to act on a feeling, and never once question the foundation of that feeling. She shut the phone off. Back in her kitchen, Camille poured a glass of water with shaking hands. Jordan was upstairs, door closed. She didn't want to press. Not yet. She stared at the countertop. Then she opened the drawer. Inside was a folded note. Something she had written last year and never given to him. It was supposed to be for when he turned 17. A letter about manhood, responsibility, pride. Now, she wasn't sure if it was enough. She added a line, then another, and another, until the paper was full. Upstairs, Jordan lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He still had his hoodie on, his shoes, his bag at his side. He hadn't moved since they got home. The question spiraled quietly in his head. Why me? Would they have stopped someone else? Was it the hoodie? The bag? The color of my skin? What if they had been angry? What if I'd flinched? What if Mom had been 5 minutes later? He sat up and looked at himself in the mirror across the room. And for the first time in his life, he didn't recognize the boy staring back. Jordan came down the stairs quietly. He didn't say anything. Camille looked up from the kitchen table, where his letter sat folded between her fingers. You hungry? She asked. He shook his head. She nodded like she understood. Like this was now a language between them. Quiet gestures, too many thoughts to name. He sat across from her, elbows on the table. She slid the folded note toward him but didn't say a word. He didn't open it. Not yet. just rested his hand over it. "Do you still want to go to that camp in July?" she asked. He shrugged. "I guess. Coach says you've got a real shot, if you want it." He nodded, but he didn't smile, because something had changed. Not forever, but maybe for good. Across the neighborhood, Margaret stood at her own kitchen window. The same window she'd stared through hours earlier, the same view. But now it looked different. The sidewalk wasn't dangerous. The trees weren't threatening. Everything was the same, except her. She had told herself for years that she was the kind of person who noticed things, who cared about safety, who watched out for her neighbors. But this time, she hadn't protected anyone. She'd called fear. And fear had come in uniform. She sat down and opened her laptop, started typing an email to the mayor, not because she expected forgiveness, but because silence was no longer an option. In the days that followed, nothing made the news. No headlines, no community meetings. Just a teenager walking home almost mistaken for a threat, and a mother who arrived just in time. But not every mother does, and not every child walks away. In a different part of town, Camille stood in front of a crowd at a youth mentorship forum. She didn't tell them the story directly. She didn't have to. Instead, she said this: "Sometimes, the most dangerous place for a young person isn't a dark alley. It's a well-lit street in a neighborhood that says they care. And sometimes, the call that changes everything doesn't come from hate. It comes from fear wearing a smile." Jordan never forgot that day. Not because it ended in tragedy, but because it came close. Too close. And somewhere in him, something hardened, but something else softened too. He understood now that even when you do everything right, you still have to explain who you are. Margaret never called the police again. Not once. And every time she saw a teenager walking through Maple Glen, she looked a little closer. Not to find something wrong, but to ask herself a harder question. Why was I afraid? And so, we're left with this. How many stories like Jordan's don't end with a parent pulling up at the right time? How many voices go unheard because they were never given the benefit of doubt? And how many more times must we let fear disguise itself as protection? Until someone asks, what if the danger isn't them? What if it's us? Sometimes, the scariest thing isn't what we see. It's what we assume. This story wasn't about a crime. It wasn't about a law. It was about how quickly fear can turn into judgment and how quietly a good heart can lose its way. Jordan did everything right, but that wasn't enough, because the truth is, until we stop seeing black and start seeing human, until we stop calling fear caution, until we stop defending silence, this will happen again and again to another boy, on another block, with another mother who may not get there in time. So if this story stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Talk about it, ask the harder questions, teach your children better, and if you've ever held the phone with uncertainty, ask yourself, what if I was wrong? Because next time, someone's life may depend on it. If this touched your heart, please leave a comment. Share your thoughts. Your voice matters more than you think. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, stories that challenge, heal, and remind us who we are, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell, so you never miss the next quiet moment that carries a powerful truth. Thank you for being here.